parents are wondering, if their kids are procrastinating because they just don't feel like doing the work, or is the, again, is there some reason why things are difficult? So a lot of times parents will say, like, when there's a big project, when there's a big test, when there's anything that seems um, bigger than just than a quick worksheet that they have to fill out, they can't get it done. I have to be on top of them. I have to, I have to get them
What
started.
is up with that?
And
Please
what isn't that with that?
this.
So that could be so many things. You know, Sometimes it's funny because we know that kids don't really learn how to do these things instinctively, and yet we expect them to do them instinctively. A
Mhm.
lot of schools don't spend a lot of time teaching kids how to study, how to do a project, how to break it down. There's not enough education on how to tackle something, how to when teachers, and some teachers are great at this because they'll assign a big project, let's say, and then they'll give little timelines, so like do this by next week and do this by the end of the month. And, that's great because that's teaching students how to manage their time. And because no one can do a huge thing all at once, right? No one's going to be able to do a huge 20-page paper in one night. But not everybody has the know-how or the ability to break it down in manageable chunks. But that's really what's needed to get a big project done. So we think that, because we do that naturally when we have something big to do, we assume that our kids know how to do that, but actually they probably haven't been taught to do that. So, and because right now they may not be that motivated either, you know,
Double
um,
whammy.
it's just kind of like, it's big, it's overwhelming, I don't want to do it, maybe I just won't, or maybe it'll go away, or I'll do it later and somehow I'll figure it out, right? But we all know that's not going to work. So I think a lot of it is that, like, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem. It might be that they've never learned how to do this. They've never learned how to take something big and make it smaller. So I think that some of it may just be that. And then you as the parent, which, may be a little annoying because now they're doing school at home, you as the parent has to jump in and help them do that. And, I mean, the best way to do that is get a calendar, break up the assignment, mark off, like, let's do this by this week, let's do that by that week, and, kind of guide them to do it. And you won't have to do that every time, if they understand what you're saying and they buy in. You won't have to do that every time they have a big assignment, but you may have to do that, for the first 5 big assignments till they practice how to break things down and make it more manageable for them. But then there are some people who really don't have the ability to do that. Like, they just, it doesn't matter that you've shown them how to do it. It doesn't matter that you've even maybe done it with them. They really just organizing themselves and, organizing all the thoughts in their mind is just really, really, really tough. And if you kind of are seeing that, and usually that doesn't only show up in school. If you're seeing it in school, it's time to start thinking about, like, other things. What happens when I give them some directions at home, like maybe chores, or, maybe I ask them to do something like clean their room and, take out the garbage. Like, do they get lost in, I gave them a series of 3 directions and they're sort of like, they can't move past the first one. Or, I noticed that when I give them a lot of directions, they kind of can't do any of it. But if I only give them one at a time, they may be able to follow through on that one. Like think about whether it's just a school thing or if it's kind of happening in other areas, because it could be a sign that there is something wrong with their ability to put, like, those executive functioning skills in place when they need them. And so that might be something to look at to see if, maybe we want to look at their ability to attend and complete a task. Maybe there actually is something to look at.
Yeah, I feel like I can actually hear light bulbs going off in some people's heads when you said this, because it's like, oh, yeah, maybe it isn't just this one thing. Maybe it's not,
Right.
like I'm just hypothetically speaking, maybe you have a kid who doesn't like to pack for vacations.
Right.
And-
Right. And so the funny thing is, like, as parents, what we always say is, like, it's so easy, like, just do it, just pack. And then but sometimes you have to stop yourself and say, like, well, maybe they can't do it. Maybe that's like a really overwhelming task, because when you
Mhm.
start breaking it down in your head, like, that's a lot of things. Actually, they have to figure out what they want to bring. They have to figure out what they need, what they want to bring. They have to get it into the suitcase. That's a lot of things.
Yeah, and we're able to condense that into one process, but
Right.
to them it feels overwhelming, perhaps.
Right, right.
Yeah, I could see that. Courtney, what are some of the tips or tricks that you use if you're working with somebody who have identified that this is an executive function issue?
I think that just take a moment and just really talk about what executive functioning is. I think it's been like a buzzword for a really long time, but not everybody necessarily knows what it is. So I just kind of want to like
Great idea. Let's break it down.
break it down a little bit, and then I'll talk about what we can do to help. So when you think of executive functioning, it's like your brain's CEO, right? It runs everything that your brain does. So if you get point A to point B, right? Someone who has really good executive functioning skills gets from point A to point B in a nice straight line. If you have someone that has poor executive functioning skills, to get from point A to point B, it kind of looks like this. So I think we'll get there eventually, right? That suitcase will hopefully get packed, but it may take hours and hours. It may be, upside down. It may be, they forget something, but like it's not a very nice straight linear line from point A to point B. So it's the way your brain manages how to get things done. And so when we have little kids, I think as parents, we kind of are their executive functioning people. We're their CEOs. And then as our children get older and become teens, they need to learn and be able to become their own CEOs, and because they're more independent in their skills. And so executive functioning includes things like starting tasks. It includes things like planning. It includes organizing. It includes working in memory, which is your kind of like your brain scratch pad. Think of it that way. It includes impulse control, emotional regulation, self-monitoring. Those are all the things that when we talk about executive functioning, those are the skills that we're looking at. And so it oftentimes goes hand in hand with ADHD. It doesn't have to, but it oftentimes does. So I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit, I guess, about what executive functioning means. What you can do is you can start by breaking things down into manageable, smaller tasks. So, we'll go with that suitcase example, right? Instead of pack your suitcase, where do we start? First, we start by what do we need, right? Maybe we make a list, and then we need our underwear. Okay, how much underwear do we need? Well, we're going for 4 days. Well, let's take 4 plus, you always want an extra pair of underwear, right? So we'll take like 5 pairs of underwear, and so you're breaking it down. We're laying it out, the clothes out. The next step is then putting it in the suitcase. And then you can go back and check, do I have everything? Because you've made that list. So breaking things down into smaller, manageable parts. Also, it's helpful sometimes to change the environment around it. So, if a kid comes home from school and, you would like them to hang their backpack and their coat up, right? I think every parent would like their child to come home from school and like hang it up. But somehow in many families, it ends up in a pile on the floor. Okay, at least in my family.
And mom hangs it up.
Yeah, and mom hangs it up. Right, and mom shouldn't, or this mom just leaves it there. So to change the environment, right? It's hanging it up in a closet. That's a lot. Believe it or not, it's a lot of steps. Taking my coat off, I have to get the hanger down, hang it up in the closet. Put the hanger back on. So we can do just add a hook or a coat tree or something that's a lot easier and less steps. So changing like the environment to help also meet the needs of our kids. Timers. Sometimes kids with executive functioning who tend to have attentional issues, putting on a timer and racing. Okay, I'm going to put on a timer. I'm going to get this done in this amount of time. It's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is. I know I'm going to work on that. There's lots of different tricks and stuff you can do to help work on executive functioning.
Those are some really good tips. And changing the environment, I think, is great. And even though we're kind of all stuck in our homes, maybe it doesn't have to be a big change for it to be effective. Just I like the analogy of the coat hook instead of the hanger. Is there something educationally speaking that is a good example of something a parent could do at home to change an environment that might have the impact for a student who's
Yeah. I
struggling.
mean, I think a lot of times, especially now, they tend teachers, because of the way we're learning right now and virtually, they tend to get sort of a lot of assignments at once.
Mhm.
You know, or like a packet, you know, this packet has to be done this week. I've seen that a lot. You know, here's your packet, it needs to be done, turned in by Friday. And that's overwhelming.
Oh,
So
yeah.
exactly, you know, so
Very
let's break
daunting.
it down. Let's take one page at a time. Rip up, you know, I've done for kids, ripped it up. Like if it comes stapled, let's just take them, let's rip them apart and do one page at a time. Or even take the paper and fold it in half. So they're only seeing half the work at once. So those are ways to sort of change the environment to make it, you know, the accommodations to make it easier and less overwhelming for kids. Let's not look at the whole packet. Let's not even look at the whole page. Let's look at half of it. You know, you
That's
can do
a
things like
great
that.
tip.